Hello everyone, my name is Sigflepsinislabel and I am taking over the HPR airwaves. The time is 7 o'clock somewhere. I'm going to be talking about schizophrenia, specifically my experience of it. And first, before I talk about anything, I probably should answer the question, why? Why schizophrenia on a show about hackers and hacking things? Well, I'm a hacker, so it's from a hacker perspective, I suppose. That's the reason why. I think my perspective is I want to understand my brain and understand what's going on and share with you the experience of me trying to understand that. And in any hacking endeavor, you seek to understand something, I think. And so that's the reason why. I want to start by talking about my history. I've been in the hospital 9 times, I think. I lose track. I've lost track a while ago. I think it's been 9 times. And I want to talk about my diagnostic history. At first, I was diagnosed with major depression with psychotic features, then schizoaffective depressive type, and now finally I'm diagnosed with schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia specifically. They seem to think that my depressive symptoms are a result of my schizophrenia. There are a few people in the public eye that are schizophrenic, that are high functioning. Ellen Sachs, for instance, or Frederick Fries. Let me play a excerpt from something by Ellen Sachs. She's a hero of mine, and just want you to hear her before I continue.
My doctors diagnosed me with chronic schizophrenia and gave me a prognosis of, quote, grave. That is, at best I was expected to live in a board and care and work at menial jobs. Fortunately, I did not actually enact that grave prognosis. Instead, I'm a chaired professor of law, psychology, and psychiatry at the USC Gould School of Law. I have many close friends, and I have a beloved husband, Will, who's here with us today.
I, too, was given a prognosis similar to that. I believe the third time I was in the hospital, they wanted me to live in a group home for the mentally ill, which I refused. Fortunately, I wasn't committed at that time. I think it's important to realize that people can be high-functioning and have schizophrenia at the same time. I consider myself a high-functioning schizophrenic, although I don't have a job and I live off disability, and I go to drop-in centers and whatnot. But I have friends. I have lots of friends, and I have a social life, a healthy social life, which is something that people with schizophrenia are believed not to be able to have. And so I consider myself high-functioning. Although I might not look high-functioning on paper, I consider myself high-functioning. One thing I get asked a lot is how it started. What was my first psychotic episode? I think people have a lot of interest in this. In movies, you see people portrayed as schizophrenics just in their psychosis. There's a lot more to schizophrenia than psychosis. But I get asked this question, and I don't really know how to answer it because I don't remember. There's a lot that I don't remember. I think it's because my thought process is in a different place than it is when I'm healthy. When I'm sick, my thought process is in a different place. I remember specific things like having the feeling that people were putting thoughts into my head to make me go places so that they could capture me. I remember that, thinking that at an early age and being just incredibly afraid about that. I stopped going outside. I would not go outside for the life of me because I thought that any volition on my part to go outside was caused by someone else's thoughts that were inside of me. So I guess that's when it started. But I started going to hospital when I became paranoid that the people who don't exist, I thought people were living by my friend Jess in this abandoned house, but they weren't. I thought that they were following me because cars are parked in the parking lot, and I thought I'd see the cars and whatnot, and it's all a big confusing thing. The second time I was in the hospital, I brought myself in there because I thought that people were reading my mind, which I had the insight in believing that was odd. I had that bit of insight, fortunately. So I brought my own self into the hospital. Hospitals are funny places. They are, quite frankly. They're filled with people with a lot of stories and just interestingness. And when you're in the hospital, for the first few times, you think to yourself that you're never going to go to the hospital again, which turned out not to be the case in my case. I remember this. There was this one fella who had paranoid schizophrenia who I met, who believed that he was in a game show, and that we were all part of the audience, or that we were participating in the game show, which didn't strike me as a very strong delusion until I found out later that the reason why he cut himself in his wrist, up and down in his wrist, a very deep cut, mere inches, centimeters, whatever, away from his artery. He did it thinking that the producers would save him. I have in the show notes a drawing that I drew of a man who's in the hospital who's afraid of touching the ground. I didn't experience this. There wasn't anyone who was afraid of touching the ground. This is just what came out of my head when I decided to draw about the hospital. So, with all this, let's talk about what schizophrenia is. According to Wikipedia, I'm not going to cite the entire Wikipedia article here, just a little bit of it. Schizophrenia is a mental disorder characterized by a breakdown in thought processes and by a deficit in typical emotional response, which is more or less true. There are a couple things about schizophrenia. There are positive symptoms and negative symptoms. Positive symptoms being things that are, I like to think, things that are added, if that makes sense, like paranoia or hallucinations or delusions or disorganized speech and things like that, that is added to an experience. Then there are negative symptoms as well, which are impairment of social cognition, for instance, social isolation, difficulties working with long-term memory, difficulties with attention and executive functioning, as well as the speed of processing is also slow sometimes, and anhedonia, the lack of, which I believe is the lack of not being able to feel pleasure, and volition, which is lack of motivation, and these things. So schizophrenia is a pretty big soup of symptoms. The diagnostic criteria for diagnosing someone with schizophrenia is pretty simple. It's 2 or more of these symptoms that I'm going to list that last for a period of 6 months. So delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, formal thought disorder, grossly disorganization, disorganized behavior, negative symptoms like blunted affect, lack of and decline in speech, and whatnot. So it's 6 months of 2 or more of these symptoms. Also, any social or occupational dysfunction for 6 months, and so the reason why I think the reason why I was diagnosed with schizophrenia is because I had expressed to my doctor at the time, Dr. B, let's just call her, that I was being followed in 2005, which is still a little bit nebulous whether I actually was or was not. Also, there was an experience on the train where someone was yelling at me, just screaming at me, and I did not look at this person, and it's a bit nebulous whether that actually happened or whatnot, or not happened or not.